We have a great lineup of speakers to share great information with regards to vulnerable populations. We said a great partnership between the FIU Jorge M. Perez Metropolitan Center, the FIU Extreme Events Institute, and the Miami Client Alliance.
We hear all the time in the media, especially with COVID-19, we're all in the same boat. That's not even remotely true.
Who are the vulnerable? Disasters do not discriminate. People do. And we make conscious decisions about where we put our resources.
There are people who are more well-to-do, got access to resources first, and therefore other people were left to the wayside.
We already know that farm workers are a very vulnerable community, very much susceptible to work exploitation, harsh working conditions, as well as the increase of climate changes.
We'll get right to this hurricane briefing. We've been watching this now intently. The expectations of rapid intensification did occur overnight.
Because of the experience our communities have gone through during hurricanes, I think as a community we've been uniquely positioned to understand what was coming with COVID.
Your community is my community. It's just our community. We don't look at Miami-Dade County and 34 municipalities. We look at Miami-Dade County as a whole.
Disaster research has confirmed for years that vulnerability is sharply different by class, by race, by gender, by age.
Cascading disasters. Now we have the pandemic and we have hurricane season on top of each other.
You've seen the outlook for this hurricane season, possibility of 19 to 25 storms.
There are some of us who are more vulnerable to the mental health effects from disasters than others. Economic conditions, physical vulnerability, having supports, all those things in place before a mass casualty event helps to reduce the effects of mental health issues.
People who are exposed to COVID and have COVID are left with the choice of not having a job or sometimes working through their sickness.
Over 2,300 evictions have been filed right here in our county. Here in Florida, almost 45% of renter households have said that they cannot pay their rent and may be at risk of homelessness.
You have extreme aversion to homeless shelters in general and no trust of the current infrastructure that exists based on the leadership that we've seen over the course of the last 20 or so years.
What's most important for us when it comes to vulnerable populations is to try and find and make those connections so that we can provide that information on how to get to the resources that you need.
So let's be real here. Exposure to risk is not equal, not even close.
National Hurricane Center many times tells all of us to don't necessarily always just focus on the cone. We need to focus on the hazards that a storm brings.
On the one hand, we have total destruction of houses. In other cases, we have houses that are still standing.
Preparing for a hurricane takes a lot of resources that many individuals don't have, especially when people are working at a minimum wage or sometimes, not even.
We're really thinking about how do we help this and maintain stability of basic human rights, like a right to a roof over your head.
The normal response to individuals living on the street is that if you provide them with things, then it encourages them to continue to be homeless, and that's completely false. One of the solutions is actually supplying things where people are.
We all have to be aware of the real effects of the pandemic.
Many sources of information to turn to.
Calling your representatives.
We're all in this together.
The impact is continuing to be really profound.
I wouldn't be doing my due diligence if it didn't involve trying to bring services to the folks who really need those services and who have traditionally been left behind.